Oh, yes, I'm in frame. I'm currently on a cruise ship, which means that there's 3,000 people on this boat, which means to shoot a solo podcast and have no background noise and have no people in the background is nearly impossible. Since we film almost all our podcasts outside and there's always people in the background, this challenge is not unwelcomed. The second challenge of this podcast is that I have no topics because I'm quote unquote on vacation. But vacation for me is always content. So how do you enjoy the moment while recording everything? Part of the reason I switched to this podcast instead of vlogs is because vlogs would take me out of the moment, whereas a podcast would take me into the moment, into a conversation that I wouldn't generally have. Whereas I was already in a conversation, already in a moment, and a vlog would take me out of it. However, I've been reapproaching vlogs in a way that I feel is worthy, and I'm reapproaching podcasts in a way that I feel is worthy. I guess what I want to talk about today is gratitude. I don't even know what I want to talk about. Maybe I don't want to talk about gratitude. Maybe I want to ramble on. Someone will listen to this one day, though. So it's like, I don't want to make something bad for someone to listen to. But I'm very, very stern on posting everything I record. People are walking by.
Are we on right now?
Your legs are on. Hey.
That's the best thing.
Cameo. Yeah. Wow. So, human interaction is already happening, and I'm sure as sunset ensues, even more and more human interaction will happen. People will walk across the screen. I will say things. I will commentate. I wore this sweatshirt, and it's actually too hot, even though it's about to be sunset.
I'm yet vlogs. Really a lot. It's a video.
People over there are talking about vlogging, and I'm positive that they're talking about me, unless one of the grandparents over there is a vlogger. Something about cruise ships is that a majority of the demographic is grandmas and grandpas, and I was really hoping there would be a good amount of young people my age. Luckily, some of my friends from childhood are here, but I went to the 18 to 25-year-old meetup on boat. So, like, the boat has an itinerary. There's, like, comedy shows. There's bingo night for the old ones. There's ping pong tournaments, which I just participated in and got destroyed by some random Asian dad. And I'm pretty good at ping pong, so this Asian dad was really good. But another thing about cruises is the demographic. But anyways, they had something on the itinerary which is called an 18 to 25-year-old meetup. Great. Reminds me of young adults group in my church. So I'm like, I'm going to pull through here and make some friends. Turns out, not a single 18 to 25-year-old person who wasn't in my group showed up. Until the very end, these two 25-year-olds showed up for a couple minutes and left. Which just means more opportunity to meet people outside of my demographic, more opportunity to get close with my mom, who I'm staying with on this cruise ship, more opportunity to work, to film podcasts on board, to film friends. I already know it's going to be friggin' incredible, and it already has been friggin' incredible. I mean, look at this view. I would almost watch this podcast just to watch this view. But even better is to go experience it. People always talk about things, but do they actually do them? One topic that's been on my mind is, how do you attract more adventurous people into your life. Lots of people tell me that they feel like, not necessarily that they don't have friends, but lots of people tell me they feel that they struggle to find friends with similar interest. They say, oh, I don't want to gossip anymore. I don't want to go to the bars every weekend. I don't want to do the same monotonous stuff I've always done with my group, but I don't know how to find new friends. Or maybe I love my current friends, but I don't know how to find friends in the industry I'd like to be in. If I'm a podcaster, how do I find podcast friends? If I'm a YouTuber, how do I find YouTube friends? And my first piece of advice of finding like-hearted friends is everyone is always searching. Everyone goes, how do I find a better girlfriend? How do I find better friends? How do I find like-minded friends? Stop searching and start attracting. The easiest way to attract is to be that person that you want. So if you want a girlfriend who is better than your last girlfriend, then be a better person than you were to your last girlfriend, and you'll probably attract a better girl. If you want friends who are YouTubers, then be a YouTuber. And being a YouTuber doesn't mean claiming it. Go and post videos. Show up to YouTube meetups. Look at your favorite YouTuber. See all their qualities. Okay, my favorite YouTuber uploads consistently. My favorite YouTuber hangs out in these cities. My favorite YouTuber goes to these places. Well, then hang out in those cities. Even better, move to those cities. Even better, take up the traits of a YouTuber. Upload consistently like a YouTuber. Follow thumbnail creators on Twitter like a YouTuber. Dive into that world if you want to attract YouTubers. If you want to attract podcasters, dive into the world. I'm always calling Danny Miranda a podcaster I look up to. I'm always talking to other people about their podcasts. I'm in this world, and therefore I don't feel a lack of friends that are podcasters. But something I hear very commonly that is not profession related is people who, it's not that they don't like their current friends, but they want friends who are more adventurous. They don't want to go to the bar every weekend, and they go, how do I find these friends? But these are the same people who join a fraternity or sorority but won't show up to business club. They won't show up to entrepreneurship club. They won't show up to a creator meetup. They won't go to church. Part of the reason I have a podcast where I can interview YouTubers, where I can interview Christians, where I can interview athletes, musicians, is because I show up. I put myself in all those worlds. I'm very rarely asking myself, how do I find those people? And I'm more so asking myself, how do I attract those people? How do I take up the qualities that these people have? I think self-criticism is a really good thing, and self-loathing is a really bad thing. Self-loathing is similar to depression, and self-criticism, I want to say similar to sadness, but I don't know. Okay, so let me explain that. You might be sad something happened. If I miss a bus, I'm going to be sad that I missed the bus, but I'm not going to feel hopeless. Hopelessness feels like there's no future solution. Sadness is, oh, I got to buy another bus ticket. Hopelessness is, I will never get on the bus again. I don't know where to go. I'm lost. I'm stranded. Depression is synonymous with hopelessness. And self-loathing is kind of the same way. It's like you notice all these bad qualities about yourself, and you feel that you can't change them. You feel hopeless. You go, I'm not good at making friends. I can never have my dream job. And you're saying it with hopelessness. You're not saying it in the sense that, all right, I don't have the friends that I want right now, and that makes me a little sad. But self-criticism goes, I don't have the friends I want right now, and that makes me a little sad. How do I become better? How do I pursue those people? And I liken it to the situation after most breakups. After most breakups, what I hear from my friends, from the people I've talked to is, oh, my ex-girlfriend wasn't right for me because she lied too much. My ex-girlfriend wasn't right for me because she wasn't herself when she drank. My ex-girlfriend wasn't enough for me because she didn't have the same interests, and they list all these things that their ex-girlfriend failed them, and then they kind of end it with, okay, like, hopefully I'll find someone better. Or they just think that the relationships that they've gotten into were luck of the draw, that because they went to the same school or because they were in the same environment, that luck of the draw, this is the relationship they ended up in, and hopefully the next one will be better. They're just like, the next one will be better. But I'm a firm believer that the energy you put out, you attract. And that's not always 100% the case. There's people who are perfectly great girls, perfectly great guys who end up in abusive relationships. There's sons, there's daughters who have abusive parents that they didn't really get at choosing. But for the most part, what you put out is what you get. And that's why when I always reflect on my last relationship, I say all the things that I did wrong. I prioritized work over my girlfriend. And not only did I prioritize work over my girlfriend, but I made her feel bad in the sense that I would prioritize work in a way where I was like, I love my work more than I love you. I didn't say those words, but my actions said those words. Another thing with my girlfriend is I was on this super self-help wave. Like, I'm spitting this self-help to you, but I would spit it to my girlfriend in such a way where I would make her feel that I wasn't satisfied with the current version of her, that I was in love with some imaginary future version of her. And maybe I was, and that was a huge flaw of mine. So those are two big flaws of mine. I could go on and list the flaws, and I have in my head, and I've talked about them on podcasts and vlogs, and the reason I do that is not because my ex-girlfriend was perfect. She certainly wasn't perfect. I made a decision that the relationship wasn't right for me, and I don't regret that decision, but I'm not going to sit here and list all the things wrong with her, because that's not going to benefit my future. And I really think that if you want a better girlfriend in the future, if you want better friends in the future, if you want better environments in the future, then you got to self-criticize. How did I attract this energy? How did I let these people down? And the more and more you get to the core and ask yourself that question, the more and more you will find yourself in the environments you want to be in. And it's a constant game. It's not one and you're done. So in the example of I picked work over my girlfriend, well, that's something that seriously led me to the idea of soul wealth. And since I haven't said it this podcast, I'll say it now. Soul wealth. Changing the way people measure success from wealth metrics, money, possessions, achievements, and status, to soul wealth metrics, relationships, and memories. Now, even though I am the soul wealth guy, out of all my friends on the cruise, I'm the one sitting here doing work while all my friends are enjoying relationships and companies. So I'm failing at my own message. But in a way, I'm not, because I'm recording the podcast and then I'm bouncing and hanging out with them, and I really believe I'm doing a good job creating memories and creating relationships. But even though I'm the soul wealth guy, people think I'm just relationship, memories. I fall short of that so much. And you see, it is a belief of mine that the best entrepreneurs solve a problem that they most struggle with. The problem that I most struggle with is idolization of work, idolization of fame, idolization of status, idolizing work, putting happiness in the future. That is the reason I created Soul Wealth. Yes, I created Soul Wealth to help you guys. Yes, I created Soul Wealth because I think it's a movement that is needed by the world. But I mostly created Soul Wealth because I struggled with it. It was the solution I needed. And I always tell people, if you want to be an entrepreneur, what problem do you have? I have a best friend who has a nut allergy, and I go, and it affects his everyday living. Every day he's thinking about nuts. He's like, oh, I can't eat at this restaurant. This nut will kill me. I have my EpiPen on me 24/7. I mean, nut allergies are beta, but I'm like, dude, if you struggle with that problem, and there's other people who struggle out with that problem. So what would be the most convenient thing in your life? Would a nut allergy app? Would a nut allergy Aura ring? Like, solve a problem that you most struggle with, because I guarantee other people have the same problem. So that's such a good place to start. I had no idea where I was going with this episode, and I'm quite liking it. But such a good place to start is, if you want to be an entrepreneur and you don't know where to start, then what problems do you have for yourself? Solve the problems you have for yourself, and then, why am I forgetting the word for multiplying in business, growth in business? Solve the problem you have for yourself, and then mass produce the answer and give it to others. There's a Phil Knight quote. For those of you who don't know who Phil Knight is, he is the founder of Nike. And Nike has, I believe, 10 or so company values. And one of the company values, maybe 7 or 8, it says, do the right thing and money will come darn near automatically. Do the right thing and money will come darn near automatically. It's a model of my best friend's company, Creator Camp, and it's something I just believe in so much. If you lead money first, then you're going to go for get-rich-quick schemes. I mean, just a couple of years, I dumped hella money into crypto and NFTs, and dude, I mean, I technically haven't lost because I haven't sold, so I'm praying that in 10 years from now, there's going to be a big uprise and I will not have lost that money. But for all intents and purposes, I lost that money because I was thinking get-rich-quick scheme. I wasn't thinking what's the best get-rich-quick scheme, but I was thinking money first rather than helping people. Me buying crypto wasn't going to help anyone. And me buying NFTs wasn't going to help anyone. If I was truly passionate about it, which I was a little bit, and I'd done research and there was a certain crypto that really benefited someone, maybe it would have been useful. But with the podcast, I think why the reason of Soul Wealth is resonating so hard with people. Thank you. I appreciate that. You're good. You're good. I think part of the reason Soul Wealth resonates with people, and part of the reason that I believe you guys will be able to come back and watch this podcast, I currently make $0 off this podcast. And one reason I have so much faith that this podcast will grow and that it will make money is because I don't care if it grows and makes money. Because what I care about is the message of Soul Wealth. What I care about is solving a problem for me and solving it for other people who I know have this very big, drastic problem, which is that they idolize work, they idolize achievements, they idolize possessions. And I'm just saying, dude, those things will always leave you empty, but relationships and memories won't. These things will fill you now. Those things are all in the future. And if happiness is in the future, it will never be where you're at. Relationships are right now in this moment. It's me and you guys, the audience. That's right now. I will remember sitting on this cruise. I usually say that I'll remember speaking to this guest. So I am not worried about money. I'm not worried about the podcast growing because I really, really, truly feel that I'm doing the right thing, that I'm helping people, that I'm helping myself. And I believe that if you do the right thing, money will come darn near automatically. And I can't even prove it to you because it hasn't happened for me yet. I just believe it. I've seen it in my friends' companies. I've seen it in people I look up to's companies. I've seen it with my parents. When you do the right thing, when you serve others, it will come automatically. I have a friend, Chris Hopkins, who has taken multiple different social media channels from 0 to 100,000 followers. He's done it for his personal channels. He's done it for niche channels that don't include his face. He's done it for brands. And what he says, it's the simplest message ever. It's so simple that it might go over your head. He says, if you want to get views on social media, if you want to gain a following, he says, to deserve views, you must serve a lot of people. To deserve views, you must serve a lot of people. It's the same thing with money. To deserve money, you must serve a lot of people. To deserve a successful career, you must serve a lot of people. Dude, everything, almost everything can fall into this category. To deserve joy, you must serve a lot of people. I don't know, I thought that was so good. And since I'm a Christian, actually, I don't even like to say, and since I'm a Christian, and since I know Jesus is my biggest role model. Jesus is my hero. The only person I will ever idolize intentionally is Jesus. Jesus served a lot of people. He's so selfless. He made it about everyone else. Even though this guy is the God of the universe, this guy died for our sins, this guy is now the most famous person to ever walk the earth. When he existed here, he made it about everyone else. To deserve the fame for eternity, I don't even think it's the fact, yes, he's God, he's the creator, so he deserves fame for eternity. But the reason he has fame for eternity isn't even the fact that he's God, he's the creator. It's because he came down to earth and he died for your sins. He served everyone. To deserve Christianity, being the biggest religion in the world. He died for your sins. That's serving. We think of everything from the perspective of ourselves. I'm unhappy. I'm unjoyful. I am hungry. What if we weren't the center?
Sorry, are we interrupting a video?
No, you can walk through. It's okay. You guys are free to walk through if you're trying to. Yeah. Serve people. Serve people. Serve people. I kind of wanted to just go till sunset, but I don't know. How much time have we been in here? 20 minutes? Who wants longer? Oh wait, this isn't a live show, so none of you can tell me if you want longer. But I'm gonna give it to you anyways. You sit here, let some thoughts pop in my head. I don't know what I want to title this podcast. I mean, I could title it something about serving. I could title it something about finding friends with the same interest, or finding like-minded friends. I want to touch on like-minded versus like-hearted, even though I've mentioned it in a few podcasts. This is something I learned when I attended Creator Camp, which is everyone is always saying, like, I want to find like-minded friends. I want to surround yourself with like-minded individuals, or surround yourself with people you want to be like. The issue to me with the word like-minded is that like-minded means yes, man. Like-minded means that you guys think the same. And if you think the same, you're not sharpening yourself. You're just two in one. And yes, I get the point of what they're saying is like you want someone with the word I prefer, like-hearted. You want someone who thinks differently, who's going to challenge you, who's going to make you a better person, but they're like-hearted in the sense that they share the same values as you. They care about helping others the same way you care. They care about working out or grind. They have the same heart you have. They have the same dedication for the business. They have the same care for others. They have the same love for themselves. That is like-minded versus like-hearted. But yeah, I guess I could title this podcast something about finding like-hearted friends. I like that. Finding like-hearted friends. To deserve a lot of views, you must serve a lot of people. Or I could just simply call it a rant, because most of my podcasts I prepare, and this one I not only came in with no preparation, but I don't have a guest. So it's much easier to wing guest podcasts with no preparation, because you kind of probe a question, and then based on what their response is, you can probe another question. And if you're a good conversationalist, which I like to consider myself good, not top tier, then you can pretty much infinitely keep a conversation going. You ask someone a question, you are a good listener, you listen to what they say, what intrigues them the most, you watch their body language, and then boom, you dive deeper into one section, and then boom, they mention something else, you switch it to that something else, and then another question pops in your head while they're talking, and you can kind of keep it going. But with a solo podcast, if you come in with no prep, it's much harder to come into a solo podcast with no prep. But also sometimes I just believe it. I just believe that something good will come. I guess I want to ask you guys, so I know a majority of my listeners are on YouTube, but a good amount are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you're on Spotify, there's a Q&A section, and you can also send me a voice message. Go down to the description, and there's a voice message section, which I really, really want one of you guys to do, because I want to get a voice message from someone and see how that feature works. And I would prefer not to send myself a voice message, although I will if I have to. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I want feedback from you. I've talked about this self-criticism, but I'm not even asking you guys what you want. So if someone of you in the audience cared to listen to 25 minutes of me ranting, talking about nothing, then you're a perfect person to give me feedback. So go one of three ways. Go on the YouTube episode for this podcast and tell me what you want to see more of, what you want me to talk more about, how I could improve the Soul Wealth brand, if I should be making vlogs with the podcast, any single thought. Even if you're just like, hey, I don't like the way you set up the camera, I want a second camera. Even if you're just like, hey, I really don't like the noise in the background. Maybe you should try this. But come with solutions, questions and solutions. And so 3 great places to leave those is 1, in the YouTube comments of this podcast. 2, DM me on Instagram at Aussie Films or at Respectfully Inspired. Either I will open the DMs and I will respond. And 3, which would be coolest, and it's never happened, is if you sent me a voice memo in the description of Spotify. But I really want to hear from you guys. I really want to challenge myself in the fact that I think a lot of creators don't ask their audience enough for criticism or for help. I want criticism, not hate. I want criticism. I want help. I want to know what you guys want. And please help me out in this area. Sunset is almost beginning.
Shoot.
You know something that I struggle with as a podcaster is I really hate to be someone who overtalks. When I'm in a conversation, I try to listen more than I speak. There's a really good quote from How to Win Friends and Influence People oh no, you're totally good. Don't worry. There's a really good quote from How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, in which he says, another person, in which he says, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them in that order. What he says is that you should listen twice as much as you talk. And in fact, in Proverbs 17:27, the Bible says, a truly wise person uses few words. A person with understanding is even-tempered. So the second half of that, being even-tempered, not getting too angry, too sad, being calm and collected, I'm great at that. And I think I'm a great listener in conversation, but when you podcast all the time, if you're not careful, you can grow this pride that what I have to say is the most interesting. Or since I've been practicing speech a lot, since I've been practicing thought patterns, it's not that I'm sitting there saying to myself, I'm the most interesting person in the room. It's subconscious. When you're podcasting twice a week and you're starting to get bigger and bigger guests and you start to use less and less filler words and you're becoming confident in what you say, it's very easy to feel in a conversation day to day to feel, oh, I should talk the most, or I should. And again, it's not you in your mind being like, I should talk the most. These people don't have any value, but it's just easy to talk a lot. And so that's something I constantly have to check myself on, especially because I think pride is one of the worst sins. I have to check myself not only because I just want to be a better listener and I want to talk less, but I have to check myself because pride will come with a following. Pride will come with success of the brand. You're welcome to pass. Pride will come with a following. Pride will come with the success of the brand. Pride will come with those wealth metrics, which is part of the reason that I always tell people, put it in relationships and memories. You're totally fine. Put it in relationships and memories. It's much harder to be prideful over your relationships and over your memories, but even there, pride can slip in because you can be like, even me, I could say, well, one of my mentors, my heroes, sent me to walk across Spain. I just went on this cruise ship. I just hung out with these people of millions of followers. Like, my life is friggin' awesome and yours is not, and yours. And again, these thoughts are never as clear as I'm laying them out. They're subconscious. But pride is something that you don't just acknowledge once. Okay, I have a YouTube channel. I got to make sure I'm not prideful. It's a daily thing that I have to come back, and I'm constantly praying, God, please don't let me become prideful. Please work in my heart, fix my heart. And I'm never going to be perfect, but I always tell God, I always pray to Jesus, please work in my heart before you give me any success. And my heart will never be perfect, but I want my heart to be not prideful, not ego-filled. I want to love others. I care so much more about being a person who reflects Jesus well than I care about these wealth metrics. And But sometimes I live for those wealth metrics more than I live for Jesus, and I need to check myself. And yeah, there's a little pride spiel. Self-criticism we talked about earlier. There's some self-criticism. Maybe I can think of some more quality self-criticism. What is something else I really struggle with?
You should be within this house.
I'm thinking, but I know because I use an AI to clean up the audio. I always say on this podcast, the definition of podcast confidence is the ability to be silent. Even with a guest, the ability to be completely silent and not feel the need to fill in the space, which I've gotten quite good at. I could sit here for 2 minutes and say nothing and I'd feel fine. But the issue is that I edit the audio of these podcasts with AI, Adobe Podcast AI, which is freaking amazing for audio. You should try it if you're a creator. The only downfall of Adobe Podcast AI is that sometimes if you're silent for too long, it will think you're mumbling or a background noise is you speaking, and it will misinterpret it and make this weird robotic noise that I've heard my viewers say scares them. Actually, this is another good example of I'm always listening to my viewers. People are like, what's that robotic noise? And so it's hard because I haven't figured out a way to eliminate that robotic noise other than just not using Adobe Podcast AI, but it's just so good at cleaning up the background noise. And for someone who films 99% of his podcasts outside, it's really essential to have that AI. So that's something I need to think about fixing in my business. Dude, this is literally personal therapy and personal business criticism that you just get to sit in on. So I hope it's interesting in some way or another. I really wanted to sit here till sunset, and sunset is still going. Let's see. Oh, 32 minutes. Yeah. Also, there's music in the background, and it's really light, and I'm hoping the podcast AI will remove it because I post these episodes to Spotify and Apple Music, and I don't know what will happen if there's copyrighted music in the background there. I know on YouTube I'll just get demonetized, but since I make no money, that's fine. I don't know if it's the same for Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Yeah, so that's part of the reason why I'm trying to fill the silence is because I don't want to let the softwares get too much of that background music that's popping in right now. But I hope as a viewer it's interesting. I hope it's my voice with some nice pop music in the background and a sunset, and I hope it's the whole package. Something else with my podcast, maybe you'll find it interesting, maybe you won't find it interesting, is the same way that I say don't idolize achievements, possessions, work, status. I do that when I pick my guest. So of course I want my heroes on the podcast. I would love to get Kanye West on the podcast. I would love to have David Blaine on the podcast. I would love to have the YouTubers, the authors, the entrepreneurs I look up to on the podcast, and I'm going to pursue those episodes. But there's times, such as on this cruise ship, where I'm just going to interview my best friend from childhood, who has no clouds, who will probably never have clouds, who doesn't even have a following on Instagram, and the episode might get 5 views. But if I were to not interview him because of that, what I'm saying is that I'm picking my guests based on their achievements, their status, and there will be times where I pick guests that I look up to, but I always want to make sure that I'm also including people that I think have a good soul, because this is the Soul Wealth podcast. I'm also including people that I think do a really good job in their relationships, people who do a really good job at creating memories. That is soul wealth, relationships and memories. So if you're good at one of those two things, I don't care if you have 0 followers, I will interview you. And I've even thought about this before in doing some wild interviews where I want to go to other countries, third world countries, Mexico, the Middle East, I don't know. I want to go to some third world countries and just interview kids with the language barrier. Like, the audio is going to be horrible and the viewers who have ADHD aren't going to be able to watch. But I know that's giving that kid a voice, putting that energy out into the world, like, is probably so, like, the reason I want to do this is because every month growing up, or every other month for a significant amount of years, my parents used to take me to an orphanage in Tecate, Mexico, because I live in San Diego, so it takes an hour or two to drive to this orphanage, and my parents are good people, so shout out them. I was just a kid. I didn't even enjoy going to the orphanage at the time because probably because I didn't know Jesus that well, and I also didn't have the best heart as a kid, but hopefully I've improved. I'm so grateful my parents used to take me to the orphanage. But one thing I learned, which is so crucial looking back after making the Soul Wealth message, after making the Soul Wealth brand, is that when I went to that orphanage, some of those kids got abused by their parents. Some of those kids got sexually assaulted by their parents. Some of those kids' parents got murdered. Some of those kids were starved. Yet in this orphanage, they had no iPhone, no TV, no entertainment that you have as a generalized American. And some of those kids were happier than the kids nearby me in high school. Some of those kids looked happier than I looked, just kicking around a deflated soccer ball, playing basketball on a broken hoop. And that's when I realized that, or that's something I've now realized, it's soul wealth. It's taking happiness out of the future, and they're finding it in their simple relationships in the orphanage. They're finding it in simple activities and memories like playing soccer ball with a soda can. And that's why that I one day and sometime on this podcast want to go interview kids like that, even with the language barrier, even if it's boring and no one in America can sit through it and watch it. It's giving those kids a voice. Some of those kids who are the most poor kids in the world have better soul wealth than me and you. And this is the Soul Wealth podcast. So even if that kid's never touched an iPhone, he'll never have Instagram, no one in America will never know about him, his name holds zero clout, maybe what he has to say, if someone's willing to listen, is the epitome of soul wealth. Frick, yeah, I'm hyped. I'm just hyped I just talked about that because that got me amped to go do that. And, that's why I interview Christians too. Sometimes, I told myself this is not a Christian podcast, although I will talk about Jesus. I will talk about God. I will reach and plant those seeds. But even interviewing Christians, it's like, I'm not interviewing Christians for clout. I'm not interviewing Christians because I think the episodes are going to perform amazing. I'm interviewing Christians because I think true Christians who have a relationship with Jesus have the best soul wealth. That's what I've experienced throughout my life. And so if I'm trying to teach you that, I'm going to introduce you to Christians. And if I meet a Buddhist who has something that I really feel adds to soul wealth, I'm going to interview him. And a Muslim, I'm going to interview him. And a Hindi, I'm going to interview him. And an atheist, I'm going to interview him. No one's off limits. No one is off limits. Who's friggin' enjoying this rant? I know I am. Frick yeah. No cuss, baby. Have you ever wondered why Christians don't cuss? I have. In fact, I thought about it a lot because I used to be a Christian who cussed. And what I hear from other Christians who cuss and what I hear from other Christians who don't cuss and from myself who doesn't cuss is that people replace words. So instead of saying F something, they'll say frick something. They'll yell frick or shib, or they'll make these made up words. And I used to think it was so dumb that Christians didn't cuss because I would think, you're just replacing the word with something else with the same intention. Your heart, the Bible constantly talks about your heart, and your heart is still the same. You're saying frick this or frick that. But some Christian explained it to me is that, well, it's never good to use those words in a bad intention. Like if I were to say, hey, I frickin' hate you, just because I replace frick with, or the F word with frick, that is not good. You're not supposed to hate someone. But in the sense of saying, I frickin' love this rather than I effing love this, what I learned and what Christian friends taught me is that you don't say it because your intention is more pure. You say it because God says we are to live pure and innocent lives, and we are to reflect Jesus like children, like how children are always happy, how children are innocent. And when someone listens to my podcast, or when someone meets me and I look like this frat kid from San Diego who surfs, and they hear me dropping frick bombs, they're going to think that's a little weird, and they're going to question it. Why is this kid so innocent? And I want my innocence to be a reflection of Jesus. And not only do I want my innocence, even more importantly, I want my joy. I want people to be like, this weird kid who makes dad jokes, although I'm not that much on dad jokes, but this weird kid who doesn't cuss, who makes dad jokes, also goes to church. This weird kid who doesn't cuss, who makes dad jokes, is full of joy. Why, even though this kid is a little weird, even though this kid might seem like an outcast in my friend group, why is this innocent, pure kid full of so much light? Why is he full of so much light? Why does he exude so much joy? And I want them to realize, oh, he goes to church. He's not someone who goes to church and claims Christianity and then curses like a sailor and then lives like the world. He's someone who reflects the love and light of Jesus. That's how I want to be remembered. Every single episode, I ask my guests, how do you want to be remembered when you die? And that's how I want to be remembered, reflecting the light of Jesus. And that's pretty much the wrap of Sunset. I'll move out of the frame in case it's going to show you anything cool, in case you can see the green flash. Actually, for my viewers who aren't from California, and I know I'm off screen, but for my viewers who aren't from California, there's this myth that I semi-believed where the second the sun goes below the horizon on the ocean, there's a green flash in the sky where the sun would be. I've probably watched over 100 sunsets at the ocean, and I've never seen the green flash, and I think it's a myth and cap. But so many Californians have told me it's true. It's one of those debates. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Does the sunset really create a green flash? Thank you guys for listening to this episode. If you did, please text me or DM me, because I'm so curious if anyone listened to this 42-minute rant. I know one day people will come back and listen to this and they'll be DMing me about it, but I'm really, really curious if anyone now is listening to this, listen to the whole episode. That would be so interesting to me. So yeah, let me know. I love you all. I freaking love you all.